Jack Mers is back with another bold prediction. Bitcoin could skyrocket to $500,000 to $700,000. If you've been waiting on the sidelines, now's the time to pay attention.
Am I right in this that you forecasted 500 to 700K for Bitcoin?
Yes, it was 250 to a million, but I'll take 500 to 700. I'll take that.
But here's the kicker. Jack says you're not too late. He's breaking down why this isn't about timing the market, but time in the market.
I think thinking you're late to Bitcoin is a failure of your ego.
Don't miss this opportunity to learn from one of the brightest minds in the crypto world. And while you're here, make sure to hit that subscribe button.
Why somebody needs to know about Bitcoin, why somebody needs to at least think about investing in Bitcoin and making Bitcoin part of their investment portfolio and part of their lives, who's in the position that I just described.
Yeah. Well, I think fundamentally Bitcoin is designed to be a superior asset for you to hold. We can spend hours on this podcast talking about how and why that is. I think simply put, it's because it's the hardest asset you can hold. And hard is in reference to how hard is it to make more of it? How scarce is this thing? And Bitcoin is the scarcest thing you can own, period. And what do I mean by that? Well, Anthony, if everyone listening to this wants an iPhone, Apple can increase the supply of iPhones and get them one. If everyone in the world wants a McDonald's cheeseburger, McDonald's is going to find a way to get them a cheeseburger. Equivalently, if the price of gold goes up 10x and everyone is in demand for gold, Elon told us he's going to go to some other planet and get more. So the idea in financial markets is with more demand, you will find more supply. You always will. Now, Bitcoin is the only thing you can own where that's not true. With more demand, we cannot find more supply. No matter who you are, no matter where you are, no matter what you are, we can't make any more. And so it's for that reason that more demand has to find a higher price, because the more supply that's being demanded is coming from the market. It's coming from the existing holders. So if you want more Bitcoin, you got to bid it to a higher price. And it's the technology and the innovation and Satoshi Nakamoto's breakthrough that's built such a scarce thing. But fundamentally, why you would hold it versus other things is because it is harder, because it is scarcer, and because it will outperform and find a higher price for those fundamental reasons.
Okay, so am I right in this that you forecasted 500 to 700K for Bitcoin sometime between 2025 and early 26?
Yeah.
Is that an accurate
It's actually, yes, it was 250 to a million, but I'll take 500 to 700. I'll take that.
Okay. Why? Take us through why.
I think we're going to see one of the greatest asset bubbles in human history. I think the fiscal situation is a problem. And, I used to do media appearances and say that, and now I get the benefit of the Fed also thinks the fiscal situation is a problem. Our new administration thinks it's a problem. Every economist on CNBC thinks it's a problem. It's officially alert, danger. This can't last. Jamie Dimon. This is the first time I've agreed with Jamie Dimon on pretty much anything. So I think the problem is we have too much debt. And the way I would say it is that someone has to realize the loss, right? Domestic debt to GDP, close to 130%. Global debt to GDP, well over 300%. And so there's a loss that has to be realized. And the question is, where are we going to realize that loss? Are we going to render all bondholders poor? Probably not. My expectation is further currency debasement. My expectation is further asset inflation. And my expectation is Bitcoin will continue to be the best performer because it's the scarcest and the hardest to make more of. In fact, it's the only thing you can't make any more of it. So the 250 to a million range it's a crazy buffer for me to say out loud. But the reality is, if America comes out and buys 4 million Bitcoin, I think Bitcoin ticks a million easily. If not, and we get interesting fiscal policy from this administration, well, then 250 seems decently reasonable. By the way, to the viewers, this isn't the new normal. The way this market operates is that it enters violent price discovery and then it falls. So I do expect a drop. I'm talking about what's the new all-time high, where will it tick? But I do think that we're in the early innings of a bull run and there are many multiples to be made in 2025. I expect a weaker dollar and further debasement in assets.
My parents' house was purchased in 1962 for $16,000. It's on Zillow. The estimate for that house is $780,000 today. But what Peter said to me, at $35 an ounce, how many ounces of gold was it to purchase the house? And then at $2,700 an ounce of gold today, and it turns out that the house is, it's worth less than the same ounces of gold. So meaning if I had that number of ounces of gold, it would be 1.25 million, but the house is worth 780. And then his point was, that makes sense because it's easier to build these houses now. We're more efficient, blah, blah. In real economic terms, the house has actually gone down in value. And so I'm using this as an example for you, Jack. At $700,000 per Bitcoin, is that because money, the dollar, has been crushed and we've monetized it down to 0.0001 compared to where it was in 1971? Or are we picking up real value? In other words, are we in a dollar crisis if Bitcoin is at 700,000?
No. To answer your question explicitly, I think a little bit of both. I think we will continue to see currency debasement, but I think Bitcoin is demonetizing other forms of wealth. So on the first one, are we in a dollar crisis that Bitcoin's at $100,000 today? I don't know. I went to Whole Foods yesterday and got a couple ribeyes. The dollar was fine. The store wasn't on fire. I mean, clearly there's civil unrest. Clearly people don't like the level of inflation they've been forced to live through. But is the dollar collapsing? No. Do I think the dollar's going anywhere anytime soon? No. But historically, assets have been inflating. So I think we will continue to see currency debasement. On the Bitcoin demonetizing other assets and where it's winning value from what I would consider competitors, the reality is, people have been looking to store their wealth somehow, some way, if they can't in dollars. And that's not a controversial opinion. Nobody owns strictly dollars. If you can afford to, you own real estate portfolio, you own a stock portfolio, you own gold, you own something else that can appreciate in value over time. And so people have had to monetize real estate, equities, all these other things that aren't actually money in the first place. And so my expectation is that Bitcoin will continue to win over the demonetization of those assets. So instead of owning 10 homes where you only consume one, you own one home and the 9 you sell and you buy Bitcoin, because Bitcoin performs better as a money and performs better as a store of value and performs better in percentage terms and in real terms against the dollar or whatever your unit of measurement is. So I think it's a combination of both. And I think this is a good opportunity to walk the users through, what is money and its intended purpose in a marketplace. So money is a market good, just like anything else, just like a cheeseburger or a car or a plane. But the difference is I acquire a cheeseburger to consume it and eat it. I acquire a car to consume it and move me on the road. I acquire a plane to consume it and fly me somewhere. I acquire money uniquely not to consume it. It's the one market good that I don't consume. I'm acquiring the money to save and exchange it later for the things I need. And so money performs that job as a technology. So when people say money is whatever we think it should be, like we can make water bottles money if we want to. It's like, no, but you can't make a water bottle an airplane if you want to. If you get on a water bottle and jump off your roof, you're going to get injured. It's a technology just like all other technologies. It has a job to do in the market. And when you understand that job, you realize you don't have to store your wealth in real estate or in equities. The job is to store and save the wealth you've created and then somehow exchange it for what you need in the future. And Bitcoin fundamentally is better at that job. And it is the technology purpose-built to fill that role within the marketplace than everything else. My house was built for someone to live in it, not for me to be able to save and exchange later. Equities was built to run a company, not to be a money, right? So I think people will sell the assets that they're using as money because of the unfortunate situation of a devaluing currency, and convert it into Bitcoin, which Satoshi built to solve that problem of a market good that you don't consume and you save it and use it for future exchange.
What are the most common misconceptions traditional and older investors have about Bitcoin, and how can they be addressed? This is Joshua from Missouri.
That's a great question. I think things like security is one that comes to mind. Don't mistaken the collapse of a company or an exchange for an issue with Bitcoin and the money and the protocol itself. I think the other is volatility. I think people fear volatility. And unfortunately, Anthony, I think we live in a world where central parties and governments and central banks have really tried to strip the volatility away from us and take it out of our lives. And we think of no volatility as like normal, I guess. And so I think the biggest misconception, it depends on the investor you're talking to, but to the general public is, volatility is a good thing. If you're on the first floor and you want to get to the penthouse, the only way to go up is with volatility. Volatility implies life. Volatility implies performance. And so the volatility is a good thing. Without volatility, you can't get any returns. So I would say security and volatility are probably the most misunderstood, where Bitcoin's the most secure thing you could ever own with no counterparty risk. And Bitcoin, I hope it continues to be volatile, because that means it's going to continue to be the best performing. It's just math.
What is your best advice for an aspiring entrepreneur, David from Florida?
Wow, it's a great question. I would say to stay curious is probably the main one. I would also say, in my experience, there are certain times in my career where there are really important people around me that believed in me more than I believed in myself. And those were really pivotal moments that I can look back on and remember like it was yesterday. And upon reflecting on my entrepreneurial career is just who I surrounded myself with. There's a direct correlation between success and good times, and whether it's earnings and good investments or good cash flows and profits and products, and who is involved and who is around me. So continue to stay curious. You have to believe in yourself. You only lose if you quit. But keeping good company and being able to ask questions and being able to resource yourself with people around you was critical for me, because if I didn't have certain folks around me, whether that's good investors, good employees, good friends, good family, I wouldn't have made it. And it was really critical times where they believed in me more than I believed in me, that saw me through the other side. So value your company.
Some people are saying, "Oh, it's $100,000. Don't buy it. It's going to correct back to 60, blah, blah, blah." What do you say? Get off zero? What do you say, sir?
Yeah, I'll go on a quick rant to end this. Listen, I think thinking you're late to Bitcoin is a failure of your ego. I really do, because it's late to who? And you realize, oh, you're comparing yourself to Anthony. You're comparing yourself to your friend, to your colleague, to this person you don't know on the internet. And to me, that's a failure of your ego. That's vulnerable insecurities getting the best of your best interests. The reality is, economic decisions are made at the margin. Every single day we wake up and we contribute value to this world. Our alarm goes off and it might be cold, we might be tired, commute might be long, but we get up and we do it anyway. And we make the world a better place through whatever our contributions are. Janitor, podcast host, investor, we contribute to those around us. We got to store that value somewhere for ourselves, for our future, for our family. And you have to make that decision. And every single day, I make that decision, and that decision continues to be Bitcoin, no matter the price. The price doesn't invalidate the properties of the system, the fact that it's the scarcest, the fact that it's the best. And so thinking you're late, to me, is a failure of ego and making yourself so small that you can't act in your own best interest when compared to another shadow or another person. So I think you got to put your ego aside. And when you submit your ego and say, I'm not bigger than this thing, I don't need to be the main character, I don't need to be the best, I just need to be me and do what's in my interest, that's when I think you start buying a little bit of Bitcoin, and it's time in the market, not timing the market. So don't let your ego get the best of you. And to me, Bitcoin's continually the best place to put my time and energy, my effort, my labor. And I would suggest others take a look at the same.